Gentlemen, it is now my pleasure to introduce the next governor of the state of Ohio. Ladies and gentlemen, Vivek Ramaswamy.
Thank you.
All right, my man. Good to have you.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Very kind. Thank you, man. We got your
From
back,
the
all right?
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Wow. Look at this one. Wow. Thank you. Gentleman in the back, what's your name, sir? Veteran back there? Jim, give Jim Bailey, we met on the way in, and his son, a round of applause. Every veteran in this room, give them a round of applause. Vietnam War veteran right there. Thank you, Jim. Great to see you again. It's good to be here. It's an honor. I want to recognize the people on this stage who are going to be not my partners, but our partners in leading our state. Frank Rose, thank you for that kind introduction. He's a great Secretary of State. He's a bit of a radical. He believes that you should actually be a citizen of the nation to be able to vote in our elections, but, you know, we'll excuse him for his outside-the-box thinking there. Frank, good job, and you're going to be a great state auditor. Keith Faber behind me, a great state AG in the making. Right behind us is the auditor today. Robert Sprague, great job as state treasurer, soon to be our Secretary of State, leading us to new heights. Great public leaders in the audience. Christina Rogner, who's running for state treasurer. Where are you, Christina? There you are. Great state legislator. It's a team effort that's going to take the state to the next level. But I'd like to share a story that I didn't know. I know the colleagues who we're going to be working with at the state level. Nate and I were speaking before I came up here. Nate, I hope you don't mind me sharing this story. You did a great job of setting up this program. Nate was blind for 2 years of his life in his 20s. He isn't today. He functions as a great member of the Central Committee in this county, and I asked him what led him from suffering from blindness back to sight, and he said it was praying to God. He's a pastor today. He had conviction. It was through God's will that the surgeons who cured him allowed him to achieve what he has today. And in some ways, I think that Nate's story, which he was just telling me before we came up here right now, is the story of America's revival in the last few years. We went through a couple of years of blindness in our own nation. When I look at the last 4 years, the last time I came to this part of the state, we were in the middle of a national identity crisis in this country. Faith in God, patriotism, hard work, family, had all but disappeared in so much of the nation. Our young people in my generation, I'm 39 years old today, I'm a millennial. People in our generation, we were longing to be, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Thank you. I think I got an accidental happy birthday. It's not, I didn't mean to suggest it was my birthday today, but soon to be 40 this year. But you know, think of people in our generations. We lost our sense of belonging, our sense of conviction in the country, hungering to be part of something bigger than ourselves. Yet so many in my generation had lost their sense of even what it meant to be an American. Less than 16% of Gen Z said they were proud to be an American. We had a 25% recruitment deficit in our own U.S. military, and that was unacceptable to me. And that's why I spent the better part of last year making sure that we sent Donald Trump back for that second term as our 47th president of the United States. And now we're on the cusp of this golden age for the future of the country. I genuinely mean this when I say this. I'm not a fake optimist guy. I'm not an It's Morning in America guy for the sake of saying it. But I truly am as optimistic as I've ever been for the future of our country. Not just the next 4 years, but the next 40 years, the next 400 years for our country's days. We're still young as a nation, still on our way up, still on our way to that shining city on a hill, still on our way to a golden age whose best days, even in our state, I believe are still ahead of us. But it's going to require every one of us to step up and actually seize it. It isn't going to happen automatically. We're not going to be saved by one man coming from on high, either from the White House or the governor's mansion, to save us. It is going to be because all of us, every one of us in this room, steps up to play our part in the revival of our state and our country. It's going to be federalism that leads the way. Right now, President Trump is kicking out a lot of the programs from Washington, D.C., back to the states and to the people where they belong. Look at the Department of Education last week. It was a beautiful thing to watch. It's a beginning of a new golden age for federalism. But that means it's going to require strong leaders at the state level, including our state, to lead our state to new heights. He's thrown the pass. It's up to us to catch it in the end zone and actually score a touchdown for the country. So we have a leader at the top who's reviving our conviction in America. But what we need here at home is a leader who revives our conviction in Ohio. And that is why last month I declared my candidacy to become the next governor of a great state at the heart of the greatest nation known to the history of mankind. The state where I was born and raised. The state where I'm raising my two sons, our state of Ohio. We will lead Ohio to be the top state in the country to raise a young family, to grow a new business, to generate wealth and keep that wealth with pride, to give our kids a world-class education as they deserve in math and reading and writing and critical thinking, where we give them the tools not to see themselves as victims but as victors in a competitive global economy, where we embrace meritocracy, where we embrace the sectors of the future, from semiconductor production to AI to aerospace, the state where patriots across this country, including from Florida and Texas, will flock to and flock back to right here in our own home state of Ohio. That's where I want to lead us. Now, there are those who will say, understandably, that that's unrealistic. How are you going to manage to do that in the state of Ohio where we are today? Well, I'll remind you, it wasn't long ago that Ohio actually was that state of excellence in America. We were the state that led the first industrial revolution, including parts of the state right where we are here in Jefferson County. At the turn of the last century, we were the wealthiest state in the Union, the third most populous state in America, an economic powerhouse at the heart of our nation, with fertile farmland, great natural resources right underneath our ground, leading the way in that first industrial revolution. Even in the 1950s, 6 of the top 15 wealthiest cities in America were right here in our own home state of Ohio. Toledo, on the other side of the state, was the glass capital of the world. Akron and rubber capital. Youngstown, Cleveland, steel capitals of the world. Dayton, the computing power engine that powered the Industrial Revolution. My hometown of Cincinnati was known around the world as the Queen City, the consumer products capital of the Western Hemisphere, known in the United States as Porkopolis, powering our food supply chain. That's who we were. We were the pioneers, the explorers, the unafraid, the people who no bureaucracy or government would dare to stand in the way of from achieving the maximum of our potential. And it is not an accident that when our state is leading the way economically, then our kids who grow up in this state gain a self-confidence to achieve what we think is impossible. We were the state that sent Neil Armstrong to the moon to be the first man in human history to walk on the moon. John Glenn to orbit the Earth, the first American to ever do it. The state of the Wright brothers. Think about that, the gumption it takes as a kid to say, I see cars driving around, no, but I'm going to imagine we're going to be flying, and I'm going to be the pilot who's actually flying it. That I'm not just flying in the blue sky that we can see, but I can go to the outer frontiers of outer space. We were the state of excellence in America, and I believe we can be that state again. We have the same gifts. Thank you. We have the same gifts we did. The same gifts we did the first time around, we have it right now. The same fertile farmland underneath our ground, the same natural resources, oil and gas included. The same great geographic location at the heart of the greatest nation known to man, with 60% of North America's population, not just America's, North America's population, within a single day's drive of where we're sitting right now. The same Erie Canal to New York City, the same Ohio River to the Mississippi. God has blessed our state, including this region, including Jefferson County, with all the gifts we could wish for to lead our state back to greatness. All we need to do is to start believing in ourselves again. And I will tell you this, I'm not running to be the mayor of Greater Columbus. I'm running to be the governor of Ohio, and that includes every part of Ohio. And the forgotten counties of Ohio will be forgotten no longer on my watch. That is my moral duty as your next governor. We are in the middle of a second industrial revolution right now in this country. I think it's going to be a beautiful thing to watch. If Silicon Valley led the way in the last 10 years in the American economy, it's going to be the Ohio Valley that leads the way in the next 10 years. You mark my words, that's where I'm leading our state. And we're going to do it together. It may not be exactly the same sectors of the past. It may not be rubber production next time around. But it's going to be the sectors of the future, from semiconductor production to nuclear energy to, yes, using natural gas and the oil underneath our ground, all the way to Bitcoin, to biotech, to our defense industrial base. The state where we use AI not to take jobs, but to make jobs through workforce training and education, including through vocational education in the part of the state where we are today. This is a time for our modern-day Northwest Ordinance. That's where we are. We're a conservative state at our core. It's time for us to finally be governed like one. We have a conservative state legislature. It's time for a chief executive who actually uses that to implement an agenda on time-tested principles of small government that lift people up, not by interfering in their lives, but by putting more money in their pocket, by actually allowing people to thrive, not through dependence on the government, but greater independence from it. We're going to do it by putting more money in your pocket, lifting more people up from poverty, giving our kids that self-confidence, that civic pride that we're missing in the next generation. The state that patriots across this country, from California to New York, from Texas to Florida, will flock to realize their version of the American dream here. That's going to require a new generation of leadership. It's going to require a governor with fresh legs who's willing to run through any obstacle that stands in the way. And there are some changes we're going to have to make in our state to get there. I'll give credit to those who have come before me. I'm going to have nothing but good things to say. Gotta be careful. Nothing but good things to say about those who came before me. But we're going to build on their victories to take our state to the next level. Let me just start with some basics. We're going to play catch-up, all right? We deserve to be a zero-income tax state. You deserve to keep what you earn. It is your money, not the government's. And we're going to drive an economic boom on this. And it's not just the income taxes. The property tax burden in this state has become ridiculous. We're going to bring down property taxes immediately in this state on my watch. Too many Ohioans are now paying as much money on their property taxes as they are on the interest payment and the principal repayment on their mortgages, which makes it feel like the land that you own is really just a lease from the government. That is un-American. It is antithetical to our values of private property ownership in our own home state of Ohio. That ends on my watch. These are common sense reforms. We're going to stand for every person being able to realize their version of the American dream right here. We're going to stand for our law enforcement. We got law enforcement in the back of the room right there. Thank you for being with us this evening. We got your back, and we're not turning our back on you. Allowing our law enforcement to do their jobs with the proper training needed to do it well. That means bringing back long-term, compassionate mental and psychiatric health care in coordination with law enforcement, so our jails aren't the top form of psychiatric care in our state. You have to have the courage to do what's right, even if it's controversial in some circles. We're going to end the war on work. Think about reattaching work requirements to Medicaid and to welfare so that we put people back to work instead of paying them more money to stay at home. It's table stakes for bringing our state back. Thank you. And there are those who will say that's not compassionate. No. I'll tell you this. I'll tell you what's not compassionate is to make somebody permanently dependent on the government. That's not compassion, that's cruelty. Once in a while, people do it from time to time in their life, need a hand up, but that's different from a permanent handout. What's driving the depression epidemic, anxiety, fentanyl usage, opioid usage, addiction, suicide, is that sense of loss of purpose and meaning in our state. We got to fill that by putting people back to work and reviving that sense of purpose, that sense of human dignity. Get the regulatory state out of the way so businesses are able to hire those people who want to get back to work. For every new regulation they try to put up on my watch, we're going to require that we cut at least 10 more in this state because it's time to make Ohio the home of a business boom in our state. I want this to be the state where we build, where you can build a new home, where you can build a new company, build a new startup, build a new manufacturing plant, build wealth, build a family, build a life in the mold of the American dream. The state where you know that if you work hard and play by the rules, you get to have a good life and get ahead with honor and dignity, with that bone-deep conviction that your kids will go on to live an even better life than you did, not by going to some other state, not by going to some other region, but by staying right here in Ohio, and yes, right here even in Jefferson County, to realize the fullest version of that American dream. That is what I want for our state and every region of our state. The state of manufacturing dominance, AI dominance, energy dominance right here in Ohio, using those natural resources under our ground. This isn't just an academic exercise to lift up our GDP. These are vital improvements to our economic and social fabric in this state. So we don't have Little League teams shutting down because they can't find a company to sponsor them anymore. So a mom doesn't have to think twice before having that second or third or fourth kid, for fear of the cost of a new stroller or buying a bigger car. Where every parent has that conviction that their kids will go on to live that better life than they did. That's the true American dream. Now, to get there, there's one critical element that we've got to turn around in this state, and that is the crisis of educational achievement in the United States of America. It's not just our state. I was talking to a smaller group of you beforehand. 75% of our 8th graders right now are not proficient in math. You have kids in other countries where English isn't even their first language, doing better on English proficiency than our own students here. An average student in China is now 4 years ahead of the average student here in terms of academic performance. Think about that. A 7th grader here is performing at the equivalent of a 3rd grade academic achiever in China. That's unacceptable, and I just refuse to sit by and stand by and watch as China and other countries laugh at our gradual decay into oblivion. No, we're going to turn that ship around. We're going to do it right here in Ohio, where I will lead Ohio to be the top state in the country and in the world, where we give our kids a world-class education in the foundational subjects of math, reading, writing, physical education, and financial literacy right here at home in our own home state. We're going to do it and go the distance. Thank you. Thank you. We're going to take our school choice programs to the next level, where every parent deserves to choose where their kids go to school, including homeschooling as a viable option for parents who want that for their kids. We're going to make sure our kids show up to school, ending the chronic absenteeism epidemic in our state. And I'll promise you this, as your next governor, never again will we bend the knee to a fake Anthony Fauci in our own home state who allowed our public schools to be shut down while private schools remained open. She should never come anywhere near the levers of power in this state again, all right? And I will welcome her as my opponent in this race to be the next governor. The reality is we're going to stand for the achievement of our students in every domain, from the sports fields to the classroom. And I've laid out one of the ways we want to do this in this state. I want every public school teacher who's in this room tonight to hear me loud and clear when I say this. I've lived the American dream. We got a public school teacher right there? You want to stand up for me, ma'am? We'll give this woman a round of applause. Any other public school teachers, any other teachers in the audience, stand up right now. Please stand up and let's give our teachers a round of applause tonight. Thank you. Thank you to our teachers. These are our heroes on the front lines of cultivating our most valuable national asset. That's the next generation. I'm a father of 2 sons. I got a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. I've got skin in the game. My older son is going to be in high school by the time I'm done with 2 terms as governor. I want to make sure that we're actually having them grow up in the state and the country we wish to create. I talk about the American dream. You know, I've lived the American dream. I'm grateful for it. President Trump, Elon Musk, we could talk about the businessmen and the leaders who have lived the American dream. Is it possible to live the American dream as a public school teacher today? I don't think it's really true that you can. Not today, when the starting salary for a public school teacher is under $45,000 right now. There's no way if you're bringing children into this state, into this country, in the household where you're going to be able to do that as the breadwinner of your home. There's no sense of, the American dream is not just about green pieces of paper, to be clear. It's not that just because you make the most money, that's even better version of the American dream. No. It's about conviction in your purpose as a citizen. That's what the American dream is about. But there's some basic level of financial attainment that's also required to be able to live the American dream. And yet we live right now where arguably our most important profession for the next 40 years are the teachers on the front lines of educating our next generation of young students. The number one factor affecting student performance outside the family, which is number one, the number one outside the family is the quality of a teacher. And yet, we're not even paying salaries in our public schools that allow for those teachers to be actually rewarded in a way that allows them to live the American dream. And so I've proposed here, against that backdrop, that we need to implement merit-based compensation, performance-based pay in our state, so that the very best teachers are able to be rewarded way more than they are today, as they deserve to be. But that means we need to focus on how we're spending that money, where less than 50% of the money that we're spending on public education right now even goes to classroom instruction. That's insane. It doesn't make any sense. We ought to create a magnet. We'll be the first state in the country to do it. Not a single state in the country does it today. Merit-based compensation for teachers. We'll be a magnet for the best educators across the nation, which is what we owe to our kids, so they can excel in math and reading and writing. And we won't forget about physical education either. Implement PE at a young age, starting in kindergarten. Bring back the presidential fitness test, including the pull-ups. And I'm serious about that. That's maybe not everybody's going to be able to do the pull-ups. I did mine this morning, but the fact of the matter is mental health and physical health go together. It's not just physical health, it's mental health too. It's making sure that we first of all, get the cell phones out of the classroom. There's no argument to have cell phones as a source of distraction and baiting our kids with ADD in the classroom. Fill that deficit of purpose and meaning. Revive civic education that teaches our young people to be proud of our country and our state rather than ashamed of it. Replace the woke indoctrination and victimhood psychology with actual U.S. history lessons, actual U.S. civics that revives in our young people a sense of pride in our country that they deserve to have. Say, as we did tonight, we said the Pledge of Allegiance. We started with the prayer. How about a Pledge of Allegiance and at least a moment of silence in every one of our schools every morning in our public schools across the state? It's not too much to ask. And we'll get that done on my watch as your next governor. In fact, every child who graduates from an Ohio public high school on my watch will be required to pass the same civics test required of every legal immigrant who wants to become a naturalized citizen in this country. You got to know something about a country, to be proud of that country, to love that country. And once we light that fire under the feet of our K through 12 education system, and I was a product of public education through 8th grade. I had teachers at Mrs. Kinney in 6th grade who changed my life. She saw potential in me I didn't know I had. She lit that fire under me, as sometimes a kid needs at a time in their life, to help me live the American dream. After we light that fire under the feet of our entire educational system now, that's going to lay the foundation for post-secondary education as well. Not just to have the best universities, as I think we ought to in Ohio, but also to provide a path for every son and daughter of Ohio who wants to become a mechanic or a welder or an electrician or a plumber or a carpenter, to have their path to the American dream as well. Integrate earn-while-you-learn programs into high school, 10th, 11th, 12th grade, giving kids the skill set they need to enter the workforce without having to rack up necessarily 4-year college debt. And the occupational licensing requirements. I don't refer to these professions as the trades. I would encourage you not to call it that either anymore. I call them professions, because that's what they are, deserving of the same degree of dignity and respect as somebody who goes on to become a doctor or a lawyer or a banker. And it's not that one of these paths is, it's not that one of these paths is more or less elite than the other. That's a trap that we can fall in. It's not that one of these is good and the other one is bad, or that the other one suddenly became bad and the other one became good. No. They're all elite in the state of Ohio. They're all elite in the United States of America. We want our state to be the state where every son and daughter who wants to become a doctor or a lawyer or an entrepreneur or a scholar of chemistry or literature or anything else has the path to do that with the best universities in the country right here in our home state, while also every son and daughter of our state who wants to become a welder or an electrician or a mechanic has a path to do it as well. That's what a true meritocracy is about. It recognizes that every one of us, every one of you, has your own unique God-given gift, distinct from every other person in the world. And that we are the nation that allows you to make the most of your own God-given potential without any man or system or government or bureaucracy standing in the way. That is the true American dream. That is what made America great the first time. And that is how we will make Ohio great again on my watch as your next governor. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Now, I'm going to share with you some topics. I think that we're ready to speak not just to the people who are in this room. Thank you, solid constitutional conservatives, fellow Republicans, like those of us on stage, but to the people who maybe aren't in this room, who share some of the same challenges that we all face together in this state. I think there are three principal challenges that, frankly, nobody in either political party has talked about or addressed enough in our state. I was talking about it with a smaller group of you. I wasn't planning to talk about it tonight, but several of you encouraged me to do it, so I'm going to use tonight as an opportunity to really speak to the entire state, not just the Republicans in our state. I'm not running to lead the Republican Party of Ohio. I'm running to lead the entire state of Ohio. The three main problems we face that nobody's talking about are, number one, our demographic problem in this state, where we are a shrinking state in our population, and this region of our state is shrinking in its population as well. It's uncomfortable to say. It's an uncomfortable reality, but we have to turn that ship around. Right now, we got more people moving out of our state than moving in. We have fewer children being born in the state, and we have more people dying in the state. It's just where our demographics are right now. Even if you look at the people moving into the state versus out, there's even a more curious pattern there. The people moving out of our state are generally younger, educated people. The people who are moving into our state tend to be more dependent on government aid. That's not going to work for us in the long run. And what I will tell you tonight, we're going to roll this out in about 2 months, but I will tell you tonight is that as your next governor, my metric of success isn't just our GDP growth. It is going to be the number of people who move into our state versus out, the number of children born into families in our state, and the number of those kids who go on to remain in our state to live their American dream here in Ohio, not just in the center part of our state, but in every part of our state. That's the standard I want you to hold me to as your next governor. And by the end of my first term, I believe we will go from a state of 11 million people to 15 million people with patriotic Americans having kids in this state and moving from other states right here to pursue economic opportunity. That's how we rebuild this region, and it's how we're going to rebuild our economy. And we're going to lay out in about 2 months exactly financially how we're going to accomplish that. The second problem and worry that I have for this state, it's not a popular campaign topic, but it's the truth. I'm going to tell you, this is top of my mind as your next governor, is we face a real risk that our electric grid in this state isn't ready for what's actually coming. Right now, electricity costs have already doubled over the course of the last 10 years. They're about to quadruple over the next 10 years and face rolling power outages in our state like they have in California unless we do something about it. We've got AI data centers moving to our state. That's a good thing. It's a good thing. I want the sectors of the future to come here. But that will make a level of demand on our electric grid of a kind that we have not seen in the history of our state, coming at exactly the time, and you here in Jefferson County understand this, right at a time when we've also cut off and reduced the supply of baseload power generation. Shutting down coal plants that on my watch would have remained open, I'll promise you that. And the few that still remain open aren't going to shutter on my watch. Using the natural gas right underneath our own ground. It takes 2 years to build an AI data center. It takes 36 months to get a new permit for a natural gas pipeline, 6 years to get the permit for a new power plant. That has to change in our state. That's upside down. Or we're actually in for a crisis of rolling power shortages. I told a story to a few of you before. I'll share it with the broader group. My parents were legal immigrants from India. My father came from a village in a super rural part of southern India. He moved to Evendale, Ohio. With little money, he worked at the GE plant there for all of his career. Faced down the layoffs under Jack Welch's tenure at GE. But he made it a point when we were in elementary school to take us back to what was then a third world country in a particularly rural part of it where there was only electricity 8 hours a day. So you had to plan around your day, in the refrigerator to open to make sure the milk didn't go bad during that part of the day, heat up the water on the stove, mix it with cold water to take bath while you had heat during that part of the day. The lights may not turn on after those 8 hours of the day where you knew you were going to have electricity. And I think part of the reason my parents did it is when we came back, we didn't grow up in wealth, but when we came back here, boy, were we so grateful to live in Cincinnati, Ohio, in Westchester, Ohio, in our first house, where you could turn on the light and you flip that switch 10 times out of 10, the lights still come on. 10 times out of 10, the fridge is still good with the milk in it the next morning because it was able to run overnight. Those were the things that we otherwise took for granted that we really appreciated about living a truly first world life in the United States of America. The irony now is those other parts of the world, they have electricity year-round, and in the United States, in California, now we have rolling power outages. I'm keen to make sure that does not come right here to our own home state of Ohio. And we deserve leadership that actually prioritizes the issues that have been swept under the rug for too long, and I will as your next governor. So that's the second issue. We got population dynamics. We have our electric grid that we need to make sure is resilient to the demands on it for the next 10 years. And then third is that educational achievement crisis that I talked about. But in every challenge lies an opportunity. Imagine if we actually take up the model of merit-based pay for our teachers, rewarding the best teachers, becoming a magnet for the best educators across the country, hardening our electric grid to every one of those threats, and making sure the companies that are investing in AI data centers here are also investing in our own power grid for the long run, leading and getting the natural gas right underneath from our own ground in the eastern part of this state, empowering the rest of our state right there with it. Leading the way in small modular nuclear reactors to make sure that we have the strongest and most resilient electric grid for not just the next 4 years, but 40 years in our own state. The state where you know you're able to generate wealth, keep the wealth that you earn by bringing down the property taxes, the income tax down to zero, putting more money in the pocket of the next generation so young people stay in the state and flock back into the state. So our workforce is a place where companies come to actually hire those people here in Ohio. We have an opportunity to set a standard and to lead the next industrial revolution like we did the first. And that's my message to every son and daughter of Ohio tonight, is that the American dream is your birthright in this state. A world-class education is your birthright in this state. Success is your birthright. Freedom is your heritage. And excellence is your destiny. This is not a small vision for our state. It is an ambitious vision because that is who I believe we really are as Ohioans and as Americans. We're not victims, we're victors. We don't whine, we win. That is who we are at our core. I'm not a standard politician. I don't read pre-scripted speeches. I'm going to tell you what I think. If you care about somebody, you tell them the truth. If you care about yourself, you tell them what they want to hear. I'm going to give you the truth at every step of the way. I've lived the American dream. I'm going to fight for that American dream every day that I serve as your next governor. We're visiting every county in the state. This year, we're visiting all 88 counties next year. I'm going to visit all 88 counties every one of the next 8 years after that I serve as your next governor, because we want to listen to you. We want to work with you and partner with every county commissioner, every police officer, every sheriff, every teacher, every nurse, every entrepreneur and business owner in this state to take our state to the next level. Not just with Republicans and constitutional conservatives, but frankly with every libertarian, independent, politically homeless person, orphaned Reagan Democrat, anybody who's politically homeless in this state. My message to you is that if you care about economic excellence and educational excellence in this state, if you care about giving your kids the same shot at the American dream that this state and this country gave to me, then we're actually on the same team. And we will work with you and give you a seat at the table to help take our state to the next level. If you put a little R after your name in the next election cycle, I won't complain about it. But the fact of the matter is many people in the state actually are Republicans. They just don't know it yet. We got to help them realize that by actually improving the education of their kids and putting more money in their pockets. Even to those who run against me, even a Democrat, to the extent we have a primary, anybody who run against me, I'll take the best ideas, incorporate them from anybody who cares about the state. We want to work with you to lead our state to the next level. We don't have to be a state in decline. We don't have to be a nation in decline. I believe we are still a state in our ascent, so that 10 years from now, right, when we're sending manned rockets to Mars, when we're powering our grid with the energy of the future from natural gas to nuclear energy, when we're curing previously incurable diseases with discoveries made right here in the state of Ohio. You know what young people are going to say then? As they do on the internet today, only in Ohio. That's what they're going to say. We're going to be the state where we look our kids in the eye and we mean it when we tell them that you get ahead in the United States of America with your own hard work, your own commitment, your own dedication. And that you know what? You are free to speak your mind at every step of the way. That is the American dream. That is what we are running to. And with your help, that is what we're going to revive for the United States of America, starting right here in our own home state of Ohio. Thank you for coming out tonight, guys. Jefferson County, we love you. We have your back at every step of the way. You fight for this state, and we will fight for you. May God bless you and your families, and may God bless our great state of Ohio.